The Raid, B-Wing, H5, Longcash Prison Camp, March 1978. After slamming the cell doors shut, the hated screws withdrew from the wing, retiring to their social club for yet another tea break between 4:30pm and 5:30pm lockup. We all collectively breathed a huge sigh of relief. Within minutes of their departure, my eyes strayed to the green steel cell door, and I gradually noticed something was wrong. When I turned to my cellmate John, we both realised that the door had not been shut properly, and the bolt had shut, leaving the cell door slightly ajar. After several minutes, I had come up with a plan to exploit this situation, but only had less than an hour to execute the plan before the screws returned to the wing. When I proposed the plan to John, he was automatically sceptical, pointing out that if we were caught, then something worse than the punishment block would await us, and I agreed. However, on careful reflection, we both understood that we had been given the opportunity to strike a blow against the prison administration, and as prisoners of war, we felt obligated to act. Having gone over the plan, I volunteered to lead the way and begun the process of leaving my cell en route to the class office at the top of the wing, with John following close behind me as my rear guard. After slipping out of the cell and hugging the wall, I quickly noticed, to my dismay, a screw sitting between the grills of A and B wings, reading a newspaper. When I glanced back at my cellmate, we both frowned, as my mouth became parched and my whole body tightened with fear. As I stalled, I began to doubt my own ability, but told myself that courage was being afraid, but going ahead anyway, so I continued. As I drew closer to the class office, I was also drawing ever closer to the interwing screw, who seemed to be engrossed in his newspaper. I realised that if he turned his head slightly to the left, then we would make eye contact and the operation would be compromised. So I silently slithered along the wall of the wing, barefooted and naked, except for the blue towel wrapped tightly around my waist. When I reached the door of the class office, I gently pushed it open and disappeared inside, watching John follow me in. As he stood guard at the doorway, the raid on the class office began, with me sliding open the filing cabinet and removing relevant documentation, along with captured old Holborn tobacco, cigarette papers, skins and ballpoint pens. If I examined certain material and thought it important, then I confiscated it on behalf of Ugly Nahurin, Irish Republican Army. After all, this was war, and I was a soldier in that war. Once I had completed the raid, I nodded to my cellmate and we both vacated the office, gingerly creeping back down the wing to our own cell. As I entered my cell, I glanced up the wing to find the lazy screw had actually fallen asleep, with the newspaper slipping ever so slowly off his lap. I smiled in response. After I closed over the steel door of the cell, we immediately wrapped our confiscated material in our blue towels and swung them out of the cell and up the wing in case we were raided. At 5:30pm sharp, the screws returned and carried out their customary cell check, opening and closing each cell door in the wing. When the screw reached our cell, he suddenly stopped and stared at the cell door, realising that the bolt had been shot. He then stood in the doorway for a second, examining us both, but we stood stone-faced and never batted an eyelid. He then closed the door and moved on. We both held our breath. This was the blanket protest, and the men who smoked were finding it extremely difficult to survive, besides the meagre food rations and the 24-hour lockup. Thankfully, I was a non-smoker and never had the craving for a cigarette, but understood how my comrades felt being denied access to tobacco. Consequently, that evening and for the following week, clouds of smoke could be seen bellowing out of certain cells in the wing as the screws opened the cell doors and were choked by the fumes of commandeered tobacco. As I lay on my back, with arms behind my head, I smiled confidently as I smelt the tobacco lingering in the air, and felt a certain sense of achievement on a raid successfully carried out.